I'm Harper, 28 years old, and I never thought my own sister would humiliate me like this. The restaurant was buzzing with laughter, clinking glasses, the warm glow of birthday candles reflecting off wine glasses. Dad's 66th birthday. Everyone was there. Friends, business partners, relatives I hadn't seen in years. I sat quietly at the family table, my crutch leaning against my chair, trying to blend into the background. That's when Claire, my older sister, stood up. Her heels clicked across the marble floor. Before I could process what was happening, she grabbed my crutch and yanked it away from me. Her voice cut through the noise like a knife. "Stop faking it! You're just leeching off, Dad." The entire room went silent. 50 pairs of eyes turned toward me. My heart stopped. That was the moment everything had been hiding came crashing down. Before we dive into what happened next, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you're curious about how I survived what came after this nightmare, hit that like button and subscribe because this story gets a whole lot messier before it gets better. Trust me, you won't want to miss what my sister did next. Let me back up a bit so you understand how we got here. My family looks perfect from the outside. Dad, Frank, built a construction empire in Texas from nothing. Started with a beat-up truck and a toolbox. Ended up owning half the commercial buildings in Houston. Has 66 now, silver hair, calloused hands, the kind of man who still wakes up at 5 in the morning even though he doesn't have to anymore. Mom died 5 years ago. Cancer. The aggressive kind that doesn't give you time to prepare. She went from healthy to gone in 7 months. Dad never really recovered. None of us did, but we all handled it differently. Claire is my older sister, 32, a lawyer at one of those downtown firms with glass walls and expensive art. She's got the whole package: husband, 2 kids, a house in the suburbs with a 3-car garage. Perfect hair, perfect nails, perfect life. At least that's what her Instagram says. Then there's me. I used to have it together too. I graduated from MIT with a degree in engineering and design. Landed a job at a prestigious architecture firm in Boston right out of school. I was designing buildings, traveling, living in an apartment overlooking the harbor. I had a boyfriend, Jake, who talked about marriage. I had friends, a gym membership, a life. 14 months ago, everything changed. I was driving home from a site visit on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, the kind of rain that turns highways into rivers. I remember the windshield wipers barely keeping up, the red taillights ahead of me blurring into streaks. Then I remember headlights in my peripheral vision, a semi-truck, jackknifing across 3 lanes. The impact shattered my pelvis, fractured my spine in 2 places. The doctors said I was lucky to be alive. Lucky. That's the word they kept using while I lay in a hospital bed, unable to move without screaming. 3 surgeries, months of physical therapy, the kind of pain that makes you forget what it feels like to not hurt. Jake left after the 2nd surgery. Said he couldn't handle seeing me like that. Really? He just couldn't handle the idea of a girlfriend who might never walk normally again. I lost my job, lost my apartment, lost my entire life in Boston. So I came home to Houston, back to my childhood bedroom with the posters I'd put up in high school still on the walls. Back to depending on my father for everything. Rent, medical bills, groceries, the physical therapy that insurance only partially covered. Claire didn't take it well. See, Claire and I have history. The kind that started when we were kids and never really went away. Mom always said I was the smart one, the creative one. Claire was the responsible one, the practical one. I don't think Mom meant it as a comparison, but Claire heard it that way. Every time I brought home an award, every time a teacher praised my work, I could see something tighten in Claire's face. When Mom got sick, I flew home every weekend. Took unpaid leave from work. Sat with Mom during chemo. Claire came when she could, but she had the kids, the job, the husband. I understood. At least I thought I did. After Mom died, Dad told me something. He said Mom's last words were about me. She told him to take care of me, to make sure I was okay. She didn't mention Claire. I never told Claire that. But somehow, I think she knew. When I moved back home after the accident, Claire's resentment turned into something uglier. She'd visit Dad and make comments. Little jabs disguised as concern. Still living at home, Harper. When do you think you'll get back on your feet? The emphasis on that last phrase always felt intentional. Dad tried to smooth things over. He'd tell Claire I was recovering, that I needed time, but I could see the doubt creeping into his eyes too. Not at first. At first, he was all support. But as months turned into a year, as the medical bills piled up, as I continued to need help with basic things, I felt his patience wearing thin. Claire fed into that doubt. She'd call him when I wasn't around. I'd hear pieces of conversations through the walls. Dad, you can't enable her forever. She needs tough love. You're not helping her by doing everything for her. I tried to prove I wasn't a burden. I picked up freelance design work online. Small projects, mostly. A logo here, a website layout there. The money was nothing compared to what I used to make, but it was something. I paid for my own groceries when I could. I did my own laundry, cooked my own meals, tried to be invisible, but I still needed the crutch. Still needed help getting to physical therapy 3 times a week. Still needed Dad's insurance to cover the medications that kept the pain manageable. And Claire never let me forget it. 3 days before Dad's birthday, she called me. Her voice had that sharp edge it always got when she was about to say something cruel disguised as care. "You're coming to Dad's party, right?" she asked. "Or is your condition acting up again?" The way she said condition. Like it was in air quotes. Like I'd made it up. "I'll be there," I told her. "Good," she said. "Dad would be disappointed if you couldn't make it. Even though I'm sure he'd understand if it's too much for you." There it was. The implication that I'd bail, that I'd use my injury as an excuse, that I was weak. I hung up and stared at my crutch leaning against the wall. Some days I hated that thing more than the pain itself. It was a constant reminder of what I'd lost, what I couldn't do anymore. But it was also the only reason I could move around at all. I decided right then that I'd go to the party. I'd smile. I'd celebrate Dad. And I'd ignore whatever Claire threw at me. I had no idea what she was actually planning. The restaurant Claire picked was downtown. One of those places with valet parking and a dress code, where the cheapest wine costs $50. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Houston skyline. White tablecloths. Fresh flowers on every table. I took an Uber because driving stick shift with my leg was still difficult. I was 10 minutes late because the elevator in the parking garage was broken and I'd had to navigate stairs with the crutch. By the time I walked in, sweating and out of breath, the party was already in full swing. Claire stood near the entrance, greeting guests. She wore a burgundy dress that probably cost more than my monthly freelance income. Her hair was in perfect waves. She looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. When she saw me, her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Still using that thing, huh?" she said, glancing at my crutch. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Still need it." She looked me up and down. I'd worn a simple black dress, the only nice thing I owned that didn't require heels. Next to her, I felt like a child playing dress-up. "Dad's at the main table," she said, already turning away to greet someone else. I made my way through the crowd, nodding at people I recognized. Dad's business partners, old family friends, relatives from his side who I saw maybe once a year at holidays. Some of them smiled. Some looked at the crutch with pity. I hated both reactions equally. Dad was at a round table in the center of the room. When he saw me, his whole face lit up. He stood, arms open, and pulled me into a hug. "I'm so glad you made it, sweetheart," he said. His voice was thick with emotion. Dad had always been a softer touch than Mom. "Wouldn't miss it," I said, hugging him back. He helped me into the seat next to his. Claire's husband, Derek, was on my other side. Derek was complicated. He was a nice guy, honestly, an accountant with thinning hair and kind eyes. He'd always treated me decently, which made me wonder sometimes how he ended up with Claire. "Hey, Harper," he said, giving me a small smile. "How've you been?" "Getting by," I said. The table filled up. Claire sat across from me, her kids next to her. The boys, 7 and 5, were glued to their tablets, barely aware of what was happening around them. Claire kept up a steady stream of conversation, telling everyone within earshot about her latest case, her promotion, the vacation they were planning to Aspen. I stayed quiet, picking at the bread basket. Dinner was served. Steak, perfectly cooked. Roasted vegetables. A salad with pears and candied walnuts. I ate slowly, grateful for something to do with my hands. Then came the speeches. Dad stood up, tapping his wine glass with a fork. The room quieted. He cleared his throat, looking around at all the faces watching him. "I just want to say thank you," he started. "Thank you for being here tonight. 66 years. Sometimes I can't believe it. Feels like yesterday I was 25, swinging a hammer on construction sites, wondering if I'd ever make something of myself." People chuckled. Dad had told this story 100 times, but he told it well. "I've been blessed," he continued. "Blessed with success, yes, but more than that, blessed with people. Friends who became family, business partners who became brothers, and most of all, blessed with my daughters." My heart swelled. I glanced at Claire. Her smile was frozen. "Both my girls are here tonight," Dad said, his voice getting rougher. "Claire, who's built an incredible career, who's given me 2 beautiful grandsons. And Harper," he paused, looking directly at me. "Harper's been through so much this year, more than any person should have to endure. But she's still here, still fighting. I'm so proud of how strong she is." My eyes stung. I blinked hard, trying not to cry in front of everyone. Dad raised his glass. "To family. To the people who stick with you through everything." Everyone clinked glasses. "To family," they echoed. I sipped my wine, feeling the warmth spread through my chest. For a moment, I felt seen, understood. That's when Claire stood up. At first, I thought she was going to make a toast too, but her face was flushed, not from happiness, from something else. Anger, maybe, or years of resentment finally boiling over. Shed had 3 glasses of wine. It'd been counting without realizing it. "Dad," she said loudly. Too loudly. Conversations around us died. "You always talk about Harper like she's some kind of hero." The temperature in the room dropped. Dad frowned. "Claire, what?" But she wasn't done. She walked around the table, her heels clicking against the floor. She stopped right next to me. I looked up at her, confused. Then she reached down and grabbed my crutch. "Claire, don't," I started. She yanked it away from me. The sudden movement made me lose balance. I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself. Then she held it up, like evidence in a courtroom. "Stop faking it," she shouted. Her voice echoed off the high ceilings. "You're just leeching off Dad. You're perfectly fine, but you milk this injury for sympathy." The entire restaurant went silent. Not just our table, everyone. Waiters froze mid-step. Conversations at other tables cut off. 50, 60, maybe 70 people, all staring at us. At me. Dad stood up so fast his chair scraped backward. "Claire, what the hell are you doing?" But Claire wasn't looking at him. She was looking at me. Her face was twisted with something I'd never seen before. Hate. Pure, undiluted hate. She threw the crutch on the floor. It clattered against the marble with a sound that seemed impossibly loud. "I'm tired of watching you pretend," she screamed. "We're all tired of it. Stand up, walk, show everyone you're not actually disabled." I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it was caving in. I tried to stand, tried to prove. What? That I couldn't walk without help? That my sister was wrong? I got halfway to my feet before the pain shot through my hip like lightning. My leg gave out. I collapsed back into the chair, gasping. Derek jumped up, grabbing Clary's arm. "Claire, stop! This isn't—" She shook him off. "Don't defend her. I'm sick of everyone defending her." Dad moved around the table, his face red. "That's enough. Claire, you need to leave. Now." "Me." Claire laughed, but it was bitter. "I'm not the problem here, Dad. She is. She's been manipulating you for over a year. When are you going to see it?" Tears were streaming down my face now. I couldn't help it. The humiliation, the pain in my leg, the stares from everyone in the restaurant. It was too much. Please, I whispered. Claire, please stop. She finally looked at me, really looked at me, and for just a second, I thought I saw her hesitate, like maybe she realized she'd gone too far. But then her face hardened again. You don't deserve Dad's money, she hissed. Quiet enough that only our table heard. And you're not getting it. That's what this was really about. Not concern, not tough love, money. Dad grabbed Claire's shoulder. Get out. Get out of my sight before I say something I can't take back. Derek was already gathering their things, muttering apologies. The kids, finally looking up from their screens, seemed confused and scared. Claire let herself be led toward the exit, but she looked back once, her eyes meeting mine. I'll never forget that look. It said, "This isn't over." The restaurant slowly, awkwardly, came back to life. Conversations resumed in hushed tones. Waiters appeared with dessert menus. But the damage was done. Dad knelt next to my chair. Harper, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I couldn't look at him. Couldn't look at anyone. All I could think about was the faces around us, the doubt in their eyes, the questions they were too polite to ask out loud. What if she's right? What if Harper is faking? Dad helped me up. I retrieved my crutch from the floor with shaking hands. We left through a side door, avoiding the stairs. The party ended early. No cake. No more toasts. Just a family fractured beyond repair. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my childhood bed, staring at the glow in the dark stars on the ceiling that I'd put up when I was 12. They'd lost most of their glow over the years, but you could still see them if you looked hard enough. Faint, almost invisible. Like me. My phone buzzed every few minutes. Texts from people who'd been at the party. Most were supportive. Are you okay? I'm so sorry that happened. Claire was out of line. But a few weren't. A few made my stomach turn. One from a distant cousin. That was intense. Is everything okay with you? The phrasing bothered me. Not "are you okay?" but "is everything okay with you?" Like maybe there was something wrong with me beyond the injury. Something psychological. Another from Dad's business partner. I hope you and your sister can work things out. Family is important. Like it was a mutual fight. Like I'd done something wrong too. I deleted the messages without responding. Around 3 in the morning, I heard a knock on my door. Soft, tentative. Harper. Dad's voice. Can I come in? I didn't answer, but he opened the door anyway. He was still in his dress shirt and slacks from the party, though Head loosened his tie. He looked 10 years older than he had that morning. He sat on the edge of my bed, the mattress dipping under his weight. I'm sorry, he said again. I should have stopped her sooner. I should have. It's not your fault, I said. My voice sounded hollow. I didn't recognize it. I called her, Dad said. Told her she needs to apologize. Told her that was completely unacceptable. What did she say? Dad was quiet for a long moment. She said she meant it. She thinks I'm enabling you. That you need tougher love. The words hit me like a punch. Do you believe her? No, Dad said quickly. Too quickly. Of course not, sweetheart. I know you're in pain. I know this is real. But there was something in his voice. A hesitation. A tiny seed of doubt that Claire had planted. I turned away from him, facing the wall. You should get some sleep, Dad. Big day tomorrow. Harper, please. He stood, slowly. Kissed the top of my head like he used to when I was little. Then he left, closing the door behind him. I cried until my throat hurt and my pillow was soaked. Not just because of what Claire had done, but because I could feel it already. The shift, the way Dad looked at me now, like he wasn't quite sure anymore. The next few days were worse. Claire didn't call, didn't text. Radio silence. But other people did. Family members, mostly. Dad's sister called, saying she thought maybe there'd been a misunderstanding, that Claire was under a lot of stress at work, that sisters fight sometimes, that I should consider reaching out to her. I didn't. Then I started seeing things online. Claire hadn't posted anything directly, but her friends had. Vague Facebook statuses. Sometimes you have to tell people the hard truth, even if they don't want to hear it. Enabling isn't love. One of her college friends shared an article about Munchausen syndrome, about people who fake or exaggerate illnesses for attention. I knew they were talking about me. I knew Claire had told them her version of events, and her version was spreading. I stopped checking social media, but the damage was done. The doubt was out there, floating in the ether, attaching itself to my name. A week after the birthday party, I made a decision. I couldn't stay in Dad's house anymore. I couldn't be the burden Claire accused me of being. I started looking for apartments. Tiny studios on the far edges of Houston where rent was cheap. Places with no stairs, or at least elevators. Places I could afford on my meager freelance income. Dad found me scrolling through listings one afternoon. He stood in my doorway, arms crossed. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Looking for a place," I said without looking up. "Harper, no. You're not ready yet." "I have to be ready, Dad. I can't stay here." He came into the room, sat down next to me. "Don't let Claire's cruelty drive you away. This is your home." "Is it?" I asked. The words came out sharper than I meant them to. "Because it doesn't feel like it anymore." Dad flinched. "I know I've been distracted lately. I know I haven't been as supportive as I should be. But I'm trying, sweetheart. I'm trying to understand what you need. I need to prove I'm not leeching," I said. "That's what I need. You don't have to prove anything to anyone." But that wasn't true. I did. I had to prove it to Claire, to the relatives who were starting to doubt, to Dad's friends who looked at me with pity mixed with suspicion. Most of all, I had to prove it to myself. But my body wasn't cooperating. The stress made everything worse. The pain flared. I had to increase my medication, which made me foggy and tired. My physical therapist, Dr. Patel, noticed immediately. "Harper, you're tensing up," she said during a session. "What's going on?" I didn't tell her about the party. Didn't tell her about Claire. Just said I'd been working too much, not sleeping well. She didn't believe me, but she didn't push. 2 weeks after Dad's birthday, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Hello. Harper, it's Derek. Claire's husband." I sat up straighter. "Is everything okay? Can we meet?" he asked. "There's something you need to know." Meeting Derek felt like stepping into enemy territory. He suggested a coffee shop on the west side of Houston, far from where Claire worked and where Dad's friends might see us. When I arrived, he was already there, sitting in a corner booth, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Thanks for coming," he said as I slid into the seat across from him. I set my crutch against the wall and studied his face. Dark circles under his eyes, stubble on his jaw. His usually neat hair looked unwashed. "What's going on, Derek?" He wrapped his hands around his coffee cup like he was trying to warm them, even though it was 80 degrees outside. "Claire's been. I don't know how to say this." He looked up at me. "She's been calling people. Your relatives, your dad's friends. Telling them things about you." My stomach dropped. "What kind of things?" "That you're exaggerating your injury, that you walk fine when your dad's not around, that you're manipulating him for money." He paused. "She's been at this for a while, Harper. Since before the birthday party. That scene she made, that wasn't a spontaneous outburst. She'd been laying the groundwork for weeks. The coffee shop suddenly felt too warm, too bright. Why are you telling me this?" "Because it's wrong." Derek's voice cracked. I tried to stop her. I told her she was going too far. "But she's obsessed. She thinks you're going to get everything when your dad dies. The business, the house, the money. She can't let it go." I laughed, but it came out bitter. "That's insane. Dad would never cut her out. She's his daughter too. I know that. You know that. But Claire doesn't see it that way. She sees how much time and money he's spent on your recovery. She's convinced herself that he loves you more." I thought about Mom's last words, the ones I'd never told Claire about. Maybe she was right to be paranoid. "What do I do?" I asked. Derek reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Start with this." It was a list. Names and dates. Phone calls Claire had made. People she'd talked to. each one annotated with what Shed told them. Aunt Linda, October 8th, told her you'd been walking without the crutch at home. Cousin Marcus, October 10th, said your doctors don't think there's anything wrong. Dad's lawyer, October 15th, asked about challenging power of attorney if your dad becomes incompetent. There were 20 entries. 20 conversations designed to destroy my credibility, my reputation, my life. How did you get this? I asked. Claire keeps a journal. She doesn't know I've read it. Derek looked ashamed. I photographed the pages. I have more if you need it. Why would she write this down? Because she's proud of it. She thinks she's protecting your father from being taken advantage of. He leaned forward. Harper, you need to understand. In Claire's mind, she's the hero of this story. She's convinced herself that you're the villain, and she's building a case to prove it. My hands shook. I put them under the table so Derek wouldn't see. What does she want? She wants you out. Out of your dad's house. Out of his will. Ideally, out of the family entirely. That's not going to happen. I know. But she's going to try. Derek stood up, leaving a $10 bill on the table. Watch your back, Harper. She's not done yet. After he left, I sat there for a long time, staring at the list of names, people I'd grown up with. People who'd watched me learn to ride a bike, who'd come to my high school graduation, who'd sent flowers when I was in the hospital. And Claire had poisoned them all against me. That night, there was a family dinner. Dad had insisted on it, said we needed to clear the air and move forward. Code 4, pretend Claire's meltdown never happened. I almost didn't go. But not going would be letting Claire win. So I showed up. Claire was already there when I arrived. She wore a pale pink sweater and jeans, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked soft, approachable, innocent. It was a costume. I could see that now. Harper, she said with a smile that didn't touch her eyes. I'm glad you came. Claire, I said neutrally. Dad was in the kitchen, cooking pasta. His way of handling conflict was to feed it. Like carbs could fix family dysfunction. We sat at the dining table. Derek was there too, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. The kids were at Claire's mother-in-law's house. Probably for the best. Dinner started quietly, passing dishes, small talk about the weather. Dad kept trying to fill the silence with stories about work, but his heart wasn't in it. Finally, Claire set down her fork. Dad, I think we need to talk about Harper's situation. Here we go. Dad looked uncomfortable. Claire, I don't think this is the time. It's exactly the time. She turned to me. Harper, when are you planning to get back to real work? I am working, I said. I do freelance design. She waved a hand dismissively. Come on. That's not a real job. That's just too busy work. When are you going to get back to an actual career? When am physically able to? And when will that be? The doctors say at least another year before I can even consider full-time employment. Claire leaned back, crossing her arms. The doctors. Right. Dad, have you gotten a second opinion? Dad looked between us. Claire, Harper's been seeing specialists for over a year. They all say the same thing, do they? Or is Harper just choosing doctors who tell her what she wants to hear? The accusation hung in the air like smoke. That's not fair, I said quietly. Isn't it? Claire turned to Dad. Dad, I think Harper's team of doctors is just milking you for money. Physical therapy 3 times a week? That seems excessive. And all those medications. Has anyone checked if she actually needs all of them? Dad rubbed his face. He looked exhausted. Claire, I trust Harper's doctors. But do you trust Harper? The question landed like a bomb. Derek put his hand on Claire's arm, trying to stop her, but she shrugged him off. Dad looked at me, really looked at me. And I saw it. The doubt. Just a flicker, but it was there. Of course I trust her, he said. But his voice lacked conviction. Claire sensed weakness. She always did. Then let's clear this up right now. Harper, show us your medical records. Let's go through them together. Let's see what the doctors actually said, not what you're telling us they said. I don't have to prove anything to you. I said. See? Claire looked at Dad triumphantly. She's hiding something. If she had nothing to hide, she'd show us. I stood up, grabbing my crutch. I'm not doing this. I came here to have dinner, not to be interrogated. Sit down, Harper, Dad said. His voice was firm. Please. I sat. But I felt trapped, cornered. I'll show you the records, I said. But not because I owe you proof. Because I want you to see how wrong you are. The next day, I brought a folder to Dad's house. Thick with medical reports, x-rays, MRI results, doctor's notes. I spread them out on the kitchen table like playing cards. Here, I said to Dad. Claire was there too, arms crossed, watching. This is from the emergency room the night of the accident. Fractured pelvis, lumbar vertebrae damage, soft tissue trauma. This is from my first orthopedic surgeon. He recommended immediate surgery. Here is the post-op report. Hardware placement, complications with infection, need for a second surgery. I kept going, pointing to each document. Dad's face got paler with each page. This is from physical therapy. It says I have chronic pain syndrome, limited range of motion, probably permanent. This is from my pain management doctor. Without medication, I have a pain level of 8 out of 10. With medication, it's a 5. On a good day, Claire picked up one of the reports, skimmed it. This could be exaggerated. You could have told the doctors what to write. That's not how medicine works, Claire, isn't it? Patients lie to doctors all the time. Are you calling me a liar? She met my eyes. If the shoe fits. Dad slammed his hand on the table. That's enough, both of you. But the damage was done. I could see it in his face. He believed the reports. But he also believed, just a little bit, that maybe Claire had a point. Maybe I was milking this. Maybe I was enjoying the attention, the care, the excuse not to try harder. It made me sick. I gathered up the papers and left without another word. That night, my phone lit up with a notification. Claire had posted on Facebook. Nothing explicit, just a quote, shared from some inspirational page. Sometimes the people who claim to need you the most are the ones draining you dry. Within an hour, it had 30 likes, including from Aunt Linda, Cousin Marcus, 3 of Dad's business partners. The walls were closing in. 3 weeks after that dinner, Dad asked me to meet him for lunch. Not at home, at a diner downtown. Neutral territory. That should have been my first warning. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth, coffee steaming in front of him. He looked older, tired. The stress was aging him. Hey, Dad, I said, sliding in across from him. Harper, thanks for coming. We ordered. Sandwiches neither of us would finish. The waitress left and Dad stared at his coffee for a long moment before speaking. I've been thinking a lot lately, he said. About you. About your recovery. About what's best for you. My chest tightened. Okay. Claire made some points that I can't ignore. Not about you lying, he added quickly, seeing my face. But about independence. About self-reliance. About whether I'm actually helping you or enabling you. There was that word again. Enabling. Claire's favorite. What are you saying, Dad? He took a deep breath. I think it's time for you to be more financially independent. I'm going to reduce your monthly allowance. Not cut it off completely, he said, holding up a hand, but cut it in half. Force you to stand on your own 2 feet more. Stand on my own 2 feet. The irony of that phrase, given that I literally couldn't do that without assistance, was not lost on me. Dad, I can barely afford my medications and therapy with what you give me now. If you cut it in half, then you'll have to work more. Take on more clients. Push yourself. He reached across the table, took my hand. I'm doing this because I love you, sweetheart. Because I don't want you to still be dependent on me when I'm gone. When he was gone. That was Claire's real fear. And Shed infected him with it. This is Claire's idea, isn't it? I asked. She brought it up, he admitted. But I've been thinking about it independently. And I agree with her. I pulled my hand back. Do you have any idea what you're asking me to do? I'm asking you to try harder. Try harder. My voice rose. The couple in the next booth looked over. I lowered it. Dad. I'm in pain every single day. I wake up in pain. I go to bed in pain. The only reason I can function at all is because of medication and therapy, and you want to take that away to teach me a lesson. I'm not taking it away. I'm reducing it. You'll still have support. Just less. Less. I laughed bitterly. How did Claire convince you this was a good idea? What did she say? Dad looked uncomfortable. She showed me some articles about enabling behavior, about how sometimes helping someone too much prevents them from healing. I'm not an addict, Dad. I'm injured. I know that. But maybe there's some truth to what she's saying. Maybe you're not pushing yourself because you know it'll catch you. The betrayal felt like a physical blow. This was my father. The man who'd held me when I cried after the accident. Who'd sat in the hospital room for days, barely leaving my side. Who'd told me he'd do anything to help me recover. And now he was taking it back. When does this start? I asked quietly. Next month. First of the month. I nodded. Stood up. Left enough cash on the table to cover my sandwich. Harper, wait. But I was already walking away. Limping away, really. Using that crutch that Claire said I didn't need. Outside, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, trying not to cry. Trying to figure out how I was going to survive. I did the math that night. Dad's current allowance was $1,800 a month. Not a fortune, but enough to cover my medications, therapy sessions, rent for a tiny apartment, and basic living expenses. Cut in half, that left $900. My medications alone cost $400 a month. Physical therapy was another $300 if insurance didn't fully cover it, which it often didn't. That left $200 for rent, food, utilities, everything else. It was impossible. I looked at my bank account. $2,000 saved. Enough for maybe 2 months if I was careful. 3 if I cut out therapy entirely, which meant my recovery would stop. Might even regress. But I didn't have a choice. I started taking on more freelance work. Small, mind-numbing projects. A logo for a startup that would probably fail. A brochure for a dentist's office. Website maintenance for a fishing gear company. The work was tedious and didn't pay much, but it was something. I also started cutting costs. Switched to generic medications where possible. Reduced physical therapy from 3 times a week to once. Stopped going to the pain management doctor because the appointments cost too much. The pain got worse. So much worse. I started taking over-the-counter painkillers in addition to my prescriptions, just to function. Dr. Patel noticed immediately. Harper, you're regressing, she said at my next appointment. Why did you stop coming regularly? Money, I said simply. She looked at me with such sadness. Is there anything I can do? Unless you're offering free sessions, no. She actually considered it. Let me talk to the billing department. Maybe we can work something out. But even her kindness felt like charity. Like proof that Claire was right. That I was leeching off everyone. 2 months into the reduced allowance, I was barely surviving. I'd lost 10 pounds because I was buying the cheapest food possible. Ramen, rice, eggs. My clothes hung loose on my frame. Dad noticed at our next dinner. Are you eating enough? He asked. I'm fine. I lied, but I wasn't fine. I was falling apart. And Claire knew it. She started making comments at family gatherings. Harper, you look thin. Are you taking care of yourself? Said with fake concern. But I could see the satisfaction in her eyes. She was winning, and there was nothing I could do to stop her. Then one night, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. Harper. A woman's voice. Hesitant. It's Melissa. From Boston. From your old firm. Melissa, my former colleague. We'd been close once, before I'd lost touch with everyone after the accident. Melissa, hi. I wasn't expecting to hear from you. I know. I'm sorry I haven't kept in touch. But I saw. Look, someone's been calling our office. Asking about you. Asking if you were really as injured as you claimed. Saying you might have exaggerated to get out of work. My blood ran cold. Who? They wouldn't say. But Harper, they were asking if we'd take you back. And when our HR manager said you'd resign due to medical reasons, this person implied you were lying. That you'd faked the whole thing. Claire. It had to be Claire. What did HR say? That they couldn't discuss your employment. But Harper, this person was persistent. They called 3 times. And now there are rumors circulating. I wanted you to know. After I hung up, I sat in the dark, my phone still clutched in my hand. Claire wasn't just trying to turn Dad against me. She was trying to destroy any chance I had of rebuilding my career, of ever being independent again. She wanted me trapped, dependent, broken, and it was working. A week after Melissa's call, Derek texted me again. Can we meet? Same place. It's urgent. I almost said no. I was exhausted, physically, emotionally, financially drained. I didn't have the energy for more bad news, but something in his message felt different, desperate. I met him at the same coffee shop. This time he looked worse than before. His shirt was wrinkled. He hadn't shaved in days. When I sat down, I could smell alcohol on his breath. It was 10 in the morning. Derek, are you okay? No, he said bluntly. I'm not. And neither are you. That's why I had to see you. He pulled out his phone, laid it on the table between us. I need to show you something, and you're not going to like it. He opened his messages, scrolled to a conversation with Claire. Start from the top, he said, handing me the phone. I read. Claire, did you talk to Harper's old boss? Derek, I'm not doing that. Claire, fine, I'll do it myself. Derek, this has gone too far. Claire, it hasn't gone far enough. She's still living off Dad like a parasite. Derek, she's your sister. Claire, she stopped being my sister when she started stealing my inheritance. There was more. Pages of it. Claire planning her campaign against me, discussing which relatives to call, what to say, how to make me look incompetent without being too obvious. But the worst part came near the end. Claire, Dad's getting older. If I can establish that Harper's been manipulating him, it'll be easier to challenge the will. Derek, challenge the will? Claire, if he leaves her everything, or even half, I'll contest it. I'll say she had undue influence, that he wasn't in his right mind. Derek, you can't be serious. Claire, I've already talked to a lawyer about it. There's precedent. I handed the phone back, my hands shaking. She wants to take me to court. After your dad dies, yes. But Harper, there's more. Derek took a deep breath. She hired someone, a private investigator, to follow you, to document everything you do. She's trying to catch you walking without the crutch, doing something that proves you're faking. I'm not faking. I know that. But she doesn't care. She'll twist anything she finds. And if she can't find anything, she'll make something up. I felt like I was drowning. Why are you telling me this? Derek's eyes filled with tears. Because I can't be married to someone who would do this. I'm filing for divorce, and I want you to have ammunition. Everything on my phone, all her messages, the name of the PI, the lawyer she consulted. It's all yours, Derek. I should have stopped her sooner. I should have spoken up at that birthday party. I should have told your dad what she was planning. But I was a coward. He wiped his eyes. I'm not being a coward anymore. She's going to come after you too. Let her. It'll gladly be collateral damage if it means stopping her from destroying you. He forwarded everything to my email. Messages, screenshots, even a recording of Claire talking to her lawyer about challenging the will. Had recorded it without her knowledge, which might not be admissible in court, but it was damning nonetheless. There's one more thing, Derek said as I stood to leave. Claire knows about this meeting. I told her I was seeing you. She's going to escalate. She's going to do something big, something public. I don't know what, but it's coming. Be ready. I wasn't ready. I don't think I could have been. 2 days later, Dad called a family meeting. Mandatory, he said. No excuses. I arrived at his house to find Claire already there. She sat on the couch, composed, perfect as always. When she saw me, she smiled. That's when I knew Derek had been right. Something big was coming. Dad stood at the fireplace, looking grim. I asked you both here because we need to settle this. This family is falling apart, and I won't stand for it anymore. I agree, Claire said immediately. And I think I know why it's falling apart. Here it comes. Dad, I love Harper, you know I do. But I'm worried about you. She looked at me, her expression, one of perfectly crafted concern. I think Harper's situation is more complicated than we realized. I think she might need help. Professional help. What are you talking about? I asked. I'm talking about your mental health. She said it so gently, so kindly, that it took a moment for the insult to register. I think you've become so focused on your physical recovery that you've neglected your emotional well-being. And I think that's manifesting in some unhealthy behaviors. Like what? Like dependency. Like an inability to function without constant support. She paused for effect, like convincing yourself you're more injured than you actually are, because you're afraid of facing the world again. Dad looked between us. Claire, that's a serious accusation. I know. That's why I consulted with a psychologist friend of mine. I described Harper's situation, and she said it sounded like it could be conversion disorder, where psychological distress manifests as physical symptoms. That's insane, I said. I have X-rays, MRIs, medical documentation. From doctors you chose. Doctors who might be enabling your anxiety. I turned to Dad. You can't possibly believe this. But he looked uncertain. Harper, maybe talking to someone wouldn't be a bad idea. Not because you're faking, he added quickly, but because trauma can have psychological components. I'm already seeing a physical therapist. I don't need a shrink. See, Claire said to Dad. She's resistant to any suggestion that there might be a mental health component. That's defensive behavior. It's classic denial. I stood up, grabbing my crutch. I'm not listening to this. Sit down, Dad said. His voice had the tone he used to use when I was a teenager and in trouble. We're going to talk about this like adults. There's nothing to talk about. Claire has decided I'm crazy, and she's trying to convince you of it too. I won't sit here and be psychoanalyzed by someone who got her degree from Google. Claire's mask slipped for just a second. I saw anger flash across her face before she composed herself again. I'm just trying to help. No, you're trying to gaslight me. There's a difference. I left. Dad called after me, but I didn't stop. In my car, I pulled out my phone and opened the email Derek had sent. The screenshots, the recordings, the evidence of Claire's campaign. It was time to stop being defensive. Time to go on the offensive. I called a lawyer. A good one, recommended by Melissa from Boston. Expensive, but worth it. I need to know my options, I told her. My sister is trying to have me declared mentally incompetent, and I think she's planning to challenge my father's will. The lawyer, a woman named Sandra Chen, listened to everything. Then she said, "Bring me all the evidence you have. If what you're telling me is true, your sister is engaging in defamation and potentially financial exploitation. We can stop her. But it's going to be a fight. I'm ready to fight," I said. And for the first time in months, I meant it. I spent 2 weeks preparing. Sandra helped me organize everything. Medical records, financial documents, the messages Derek had forwarded, recordings, even testimonies from Dr. Patel and my other doctors. We built a case, not for court, not yet, but for the confrontation I knew was coming. I asked Dad to organize one more family dinner. Just you, me, and Claire, I said. We need to clear the air, really clear it this time. Dad agreed, probably hoping we'd finally reconcile. He didn't know what I was planning. The night of the dinner, I arrived early. Set up my laptop on the dining table, connected it to Dad's TV, loaded up a presentation. Claire arrived exactly on time, Derek notably absent. She looked at the setup and frowned. "What's all this?" "Transparency," I said. "You wanted to talk about my health, my finances, my future. Let's talk about all of it. Out in the open." Dad looked confused but intrigued. "Harper, what are you doing?" "Defending myself. Is that okay? Or would you rather just let Claire continue her character assassination?" Claire's jaw tightened. I don't know what you're talking about, don't you? I pressed a button on the laptop. The TV screen lit up. First slide. My medical records. The real ones, complete and unedited. X-rays showing the pins in my pelvis. MRI scans of my spine with the damage clearly visible. Reports from 3 different doctors, all saying the same thing. Severe injury, long recovery. Permanent limitations likely. This is what's actually wrong with me, I said. Not anxiety, not conversion disorder, real, documentable physical trauma. Dad leaned forward, studying the images. I'd shown him these before, but not like this. Not laid out so clearly, so clinically. Claire shifted in her seat. We've seen these already. No, you saw what you wanted to see. Now you're going to see everything. Next slide. My financial records. Every penny Dad had given me for the past 14 months. Where it went, medications, therapy, rent, food. Not a single frivolous purchase. Not a vacation, not new clothes, not even a night out. This is what I've been spending your money on, Dad. Survival, not luxury, not manipulation, just trying to get better. Dad's face softened. Harper, I never thought. Yes, you did. Claire made you think it. I clicked to the next slide. This one Claire hadn't seen coming. Screenshots of her messages with Derek. Every cruel word about me. Every plan to undermine my credibility. The conversation with her lawyer about challenging the will. Claire's face went white. Where did you get those? Derek gave them to me. Before he filed for divorce. Dad stood up so fast his chair fell backward. Claire, what the hell is this? It's out of context, she said quickly. Derek doesn't understand. He thinks he understands perfectly. You've been running a campaign to destroy my reputation. You've been calling my former employer. You called relatives and lied about me. You even hired a private investigator to follow me around. That's not. Claire looked at Dad. She's lying. She's trying to turn you against me. I clicked to the next slide. A photo of the private investigator's invoice, forwarded by Derek. Claire's name on it. Payment for 2 months of surveillance. Am I lying about this too? I asked. Dad sank into his chair, looking like head aged 10 years. Claire, how could you? Because she's stealing you from me. Claire's composure finally cracked. Ever since she came back, it's been all about Harper. Poor Harper, injured Harper. Let's help Harper. What about me? I'm your daughter too. I work hard. I take care of my family. I've never needed anything from you, and you barely notice. That's not true, Dad said quietly. It is. Mom's last words were about her, not me. You're spending your retirement money on her recovery. You, her voice broke, you love her more than me, you always have. The room fell silent. Years of resentment, finally spoken out loud. Dad looked at Claire with such sadness. I don't love you any less. I never have. But Harper needed me more. Can't you understand that? What I understand is that she's manipulated you. Shay's played the victim so well that you can't see it. I clicked to the final slide. A medical report from 2 weeks ago. New X-rays. The latest assessment from my orthopedic surgeon. Patient shows improvement in mobility but continues to experience chronic pain and limited range of motion. I read out loud. Prognosis. Will likely require assistive devices permanently. Full recovery unlikely. I looked at Claire. I'm not faking. I'm not manipulating. I'm just trying to live with a body that doesn't work the way it used to, and you've made that 1,000 times harder. Claire's eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of anger, not remorse. You've turned Dad against me. You did that yourself. Dad stood again, walked to Claire. For a moment, I thought he was going to comfort her. Instead, he said, I think you need to leave. Dad, I need time to process this. Time to figure out what's real and what isn't. And I can't do that with you here. His voice was firm. Go home, Claire. We'll talk when I'm ready. Claire looked at me with pure hatred. This isn't over. Yes, it is, I said. Because if you come after me again, I'll file a restraining order. I have grounds. Sandra checked. Sandra, my lawyer. Claire grabbed her purse and stormed out. The door slammed so hard the windows shook. Dad and I sat in silence for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For doubting you. For letting her get in my head. For not seeing what she was doing." He looked at me with tears in his eyes. "For not being the father you needed me to be." I moved to the chair next to him, took his hand. "You were manipulated. She's good at it. That's not an excuse. Maybe not. But it's an explanation." We sat there, holding hands, while the evidence of Claire's betrayal glowed on the TV screen behind us. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Derek filed for divorce 3 days after the confrontation. Claire called me, screaming, blaming me for destroying her marriage. I hung up, blocked her number. Dad cut off Claire's trust fund access. "Not permanently," he said, "but until she could prove she'd sought help." Therapy. Real therapy. Not just apologizing and moving on. Claire's response was to hire a lawyer of her own. She tried to sue me for defamation, claiming I'd lied about her in front of our father. Sandra shut that down fast with Derek's messages as evidence. Then Claire went after Derek in the divorce. Fought for full custody of the kids, claimed he was an unfit father. That backfired when Derek's lawyer presented evidence of Claire's obsessive behavior, her plotting, her campaign against me. The judge granted joint custody but noted Claire's behavior was concerning. Through it all, I focused on my recovery. Real recovery, not the performance Claire had accused me of. With Dad's full support restored, I increased my physical therapy back to 3 times a week. Dr. Patel was thrilled. We set new goals. Not walking without assistance, that wasn't realistic. But reducing pain, increasing strength, maybe graduating from a crutch to a cane. 8 months after the confrontation, I hit that goal. I walked into Dad's house with a cane instead of a crutch. He cried. I also started working part-time for a small architecture firm in Houston, remote mostly, but with occasional in-office days. They knew about my limitations and worked around them. It felt good to be using my brain again, creating things, contributing. Claire tried to reach out twice, once through Dad, asking him to tell Harper I'm sorry. He told her to tell me herself. She never did. The second time was an email. 3 paragraphs of half-hearted apology, followed by 2 paragraphs of justification. I was protecting Dad. I was worried about our family. You have to understand my perspective. I deleted it without responding. Dad asked me once if I'd ever forgive her. I don't know, I told him honestly. Maybe someday, but not today, and probably not tomorrow either. That's fair, he said. He revised his will. Split everything evenly between Claire and me, but with a stipulation. Claire couldn't access her inheritance until she completed family therapy and made a genuine amends. Not just to me, but to Derek, to the kids whose custody battle had traumatized them, to everyone shed hurt. Claire called him furious, accused him of choosing me over her again. He stood firm. I'm not choosing, he told her. I'm protecting. There's a difference. A year after everything exploded, I moved into my own apartment. Small, 1-bedroom, ground floor for accessibility. Dad helped with the deposit, but I paid the rent myself. It felt like freedom. I joined a support group for people with chronic injuries, met others who understood the invisible daily struggle, the constant pain, the frustration of a body that doesn't cooperate. I made friends, real ones, not people who pitied me. One of them was Nathan, 35, a writer, had been in a motorcycle accident 3 years earlier. He walked with a limp and understood what it meant to rebuild a life from scratch. We started dating slowly. Coffee, then dinner, then weekend trips to museums and parks where we could sit when the pain got too bad. He never questioned my limitations, never suggested I was exaggerating. He just existed beside me, in his own struggle, understanding mine. Dad loved him, finally, he said after meeting Nathan, someone who gets it. Claire tried one more time to cause trouble. She called Nathan, told him I was using him, that I had a history of manipulating people. Nathan recorded the call and sent it to me. We laughed about it together. Your sister's really committed to this villain arc, he joked. She should get an award for persistence, I said. But underneath the humor, it hurt. Because Claire was my sister. We'd shared a childhood, a mother, a history. And she'd thrown it all away because she couldn't stand the idea of me receiving something she thought belonged to her. I wrote her a letter once, never sent it. But writing it helped. You wanted me to be faking, I wrote. Because if I was faking, then you weren't a bad person for treating me the way you did. But I wasn't faking. I was drowning. And instead of throwing me a rope, you held my head under water and called it tough love. I burned the letter in Dad's fireplace. Watched the paper curl and blacken. Let it go. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But release. I released the need for Claire to understand. The need for her to apologize. The need for our relationship to be salvaged. Some things can't be fixed. Some betrayals are too deep. And that's okay. I learned to be okay with it. It's been 2 years now since Claire grabbed my crutch at Dad's birthday party and screamed that I was faking. I'm 30 years old. I walk with a cane. Some days are better than others. I still have chronic pain. I still take medication. I probably always will. But I'm living. Really living, not just surviving. I work full-time now, from home mostly. The architecture firm promoted me last month. I'm designing again, creating spaces, solving problems. My brain works even when my body doesn't. Nathan and I moved in together 6 months ago. We're not in a rush to get married, but we're building something real, something based on understanding, not pity. Dad is 70 now. His health is declining. Arthritis, high blood pressure, the usual stuff that comes with age. I help him when I can. He helped me for so long, it feels good to return the favor. Claire and I haven't spoken in over a year. Derek tells me she's still in therapy, that she's working on herself, trying to understand why she did what she did. Maybe someday she'll be ready to really apologize. Not the half-hearted version she attempted before, but a real one. Taking accountability. Making amends. Maybe I'll be ready to hear it. Or maybe not. I've learned that I don't owe anyone my forgiveness. Not even family. Especially not family who hurt me deliberately, systematically, with full knowledge of what they were doing. The support group taught me that. One of the other members, a woman named Ruth who'd been in a car accident similar to mine, said something that stuck with me. People think forgiveness is about letting go of anger, but sometimes it's about letting go of the relationship. You can be at peace without reconciling. You can heal without going back. I'm at peace now. Most days, I think about that moment a lot. The restaurant, the birthday party, Claire's hand on my crutch, her voice echoing off the marble floors. Stop faking it. You're just leeching off, Dad. At the time, it felt like the end of the world, like my life was collapsing. But it was actually a beginning. A painful, brutal beginning, but a necessary one. Because Claire forced me to defend myself, to gather evidence, to stand up, to stop apologizing for needing help, to stop feeling guilty for being injured. Her cruelty, ironically, made me stronger. Not physically. I'll never be physically strong the way I was before the accident, but mentally, emotionally, I learned that I could survive betrayal, that I could face my worst fears, that I could be called a liar, a manipulator, a leech, and still know the truth about myself. I learned that some people will never believe your pain. And that's okay. Their disbelief doesn't make your pain less real. I learned that family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up, who believe you, who sit with you in the hard moments and don't try to fix you or change you or make you prove yourself. Dad showed up. Eventually. After Claire's poison worked its way out of his system. Derek showed up. At great personal cost. Nathan showed up. Every day, without question. Dr. Patel, Sandra the lawyer, Melissa from Boston, Ruth from the support group. They all showed up. Claire didn't, and I had to learn to be okay with that. I still think about what I would say to her if she walked through my door right now, genuinely ready to listen. I'd tell her that I understand, not excuse her, but understand. She felt invisible. She felt like she was losing Dad. She felt like I was getting something that should have been hers. But I'd also tell her that understanding doesn't mean accepting, that her pain doesn't justify inflicting pain on others. That being jealous is human, but weaponizing that jealousy is a choice. I'd tell her that she didn't just try to take my father's support away. She tried to take my truth, my reality, my right to say, "This hurts," and be believed. That's the part I don't know if I can forgive. The gaslighting, the systematic campaign to make me doubt my own experience, the attempt to rewrite my injury as mental illness. Because when you take someone's truth away, what do they have left? I fought to keep mine, and I won. But the fight cost me my sister. Maybe forever. Standing at my apartment window now, looking out at Houston's skyline, I think about that night. Claire throwing my crutch. Me collapsing, trying to prove I wasn't faking. If I could go back, would I change anything? I don't think so, because every painful step led me here. To this apartment I pay for myself. To this job I earned. To this life I built from rubble. Claire took my crutch that day, thinking she could take my dignity too. Thinking she could expose me as a fraud. Thinking she'd finally get the validation she craved. But she was wrong. Because I'm not a fraud. I'm not a leech. I'm not weak. I'm a woman who got hit by a truck and survived. Who lost everything and rebuilt. Who was betrayed by her own blood and didn't break. I walk slower now. With a cane. And sometimes pain. And always caution. But I walk on my own terms. With my truth intact. With my dignity earned through survival. And that's more than enough. That's everything. So tell me, have you ever had someone in your life who refused to believe your pain? Someone who made you feel like you had to constantly prove yourself? Drop your story in the comments. Let's remind each other that we're not alone in this. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more real stories about family, betrayal, and survival. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's fighting their own battle against disbelief. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing. Thank you for being the kind of person who doesn't need proof to offer compassion. Remember, your truth doesn't need anyone else's validation to be real. You know what you're living through. Trust that. Hold on to it. Don't let anyone take it from you. Stay strong, stay true, and keep walking, however that looks for you.